Welcome to the Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self-governance. Today we have a special show talking about right-wing influences in the Libertarian Party. I am joined by the one, the only Jeremiah from AgrisNexus, and Harrison Wells, the guy who runs the AZ Libertarian Party Twitter. We're going to get into it. Also, big shout out to everybody at PorkFest. Looks absolutely awesome. And to Harrison for sharing that stuff. What's up, guys?
Well, apparently me, because I found out I can do pull-ups like with some equipment that I've already had on hand. So I've been doing like at least 100 of those a day, and my shoulders aren't happy, but they're going to be large. So
yeah, good for you. I get up to about, I do like reps of 20, 15, depending on the day. I've been also, doing a lot of HIIT and stuff. I'm going to get back into it, get 10% body fat. That's the goal. But Harrison, there's an interesting post. Let's get right into it.
Yeah. Okay. So for the audience's benefit, basically the reason we're doing this podcast is because of a Twitter post, which I believe Jeremiah found. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Cool. There's this post which Jeremiah found on Twitter, and it was copied over from Instagram, where a middle-aged woman who posted about her double mastectomy had received a lot of hate in her comment section from right-wing types, and mostly, making fun of this supposed transgender man, talking about how miserable they'll be, how they'll want to go back. And the problem is that this was not a transgender man, of course. This was a woman with breast cancer. And so this led to Jeremiah and I having a little conversation behind the scenes about within the liberty movement and the way we've fallen into some of the left-right divide.
Yeah. Well, and the general vibe here, like, people have been following me and paying attention. They know that, like, there's this thing called anti-trans derangement syndrome, where basically anything that, remotely appears trans or LGBT in general with some of these people will get massively dogpiled and bad faith attacked, and people will call them groomers and associate children with it for a variety of reasons. This woman had malignant breast cancer, and there were people, saying don't make posts about cutting off healthy breast tissue because they're pieces of shit, and because this issue isn't actually real for them. They wanted a way to treat people like shit and get away with it. And that's the way it is with a lot of alleged libertarians, because a lot of alleged libertarians have issues of being co-opted by these people. And Harrison has found the same thing to be true. Like, everybody who knows me, like, the vast majority of them hate me. I'm a fucking asshole, and I admit it, and I don't care. They can go fuck themselves. But, like, people have a lot less reason to hate Harrison, and he agrees with me. Like, somebody who outright runs one of the Mises accounts agrees with me, and he has seen this slow infiltration of authoritarian right-wingers into libertarian spaces. So he basically said he wanted to talk about some of that he's seen today.
Yeah. So it's kind of Jeremiah's pet topic in a way, but it's something I've grown very interested in recently, because it is a problem. And like, that post was the inciting factor, but I don't necessarily want to make today I don't know if today has to be just about the right, and I definitely don't think it needs to be just about the LGBT issue, because while that is an issue, I think in general, I've seen a lot of people lately who are sacrificing libertarian principles, essentially for pet social issues that stem from the fact that essentially to them libertarianism was always just a road to the social outcomes they desired, and if they realized that libertarianism doesn't actually guarantee those outcomes, they're abandoning it. And so I think while I'm not entirely against libertarians having opinions on culture war topics, we have a problem right now with people abandoning principles because it's not playing into their culture war narrative.
For sure.
What if you do the reverse as well? Is that okay?
Like,
well, describe the reverse.
What do you mean?
Well, Jeremiah's going to yell at me for this, and we had a discussion. But there's a lot of people now who are like, Kareem. Well, here's one thing I have problems with libertarians and anarchists, I'll say. Every division that I've seen always has extremely weird qualifiers for the others and says they're not anarchists. The ANCOMs are like, well, you're not anarchist because private property. The ANCAPs are like, well, you're not anarchist because you don't look at private property like us. Then everybody then they both dogpile on the primitivists. Well, I wouldn't want to live like that. That's horrible. Well, okay, fine, but they're still anarchists and they're making it work, just like you're saying. And fine, Harrison doesn't live that. That's fine. Although his internet's kind of primitive. Just throwing that out there. Then I know people who are like, well, trans people can't be anarchists. Well, there's trans anarchists. They exist. You can find them in Jeremy Server, Mad Liberty. They're good people, and they're probably more dedicated to liberty than you are because they have a threat. So I have problems with all of that. I have problems with libertarians in circles saying, oh, you're not a real libertarian or anarchist or whatever. Sometimes I will say I use the political system, like running for local office or state office, and sacrifice a little bit just to see if I can Can I
jump in here?
Yes.
I think you've identified something very real, but there's two different things going on there, and you've conflated the two of them, and one of them's good and one of them's bad. So essentially, what you're just describing is gatekeeping in general, essentially, and a lot of the gatekeeping in the liberty movement is bad, especially some of the gatekeeping that I've seen break down along cultural lines. I am personally a very conservative person, and I would never gatekeep Jeremiah out of anarchy. I think that would be really stupid, and I would hope he wouldn't do the same to me because of my personal beliefs and how I live my life. That's very dumb. The issue is that I actually don't think that's the cause of most of the gatekeeping. The vast majority of the gatekeeping that we see in these anarchist circles are fundamentally debates about theory. And it is important to gatekeep people who do not align with truth on the basic theory of liberty. Personally, I know, Kareem, you're a huge coalitionist, including with leftists, and that's fine. I think coalitions are good, but right. If someone doesn't believe in the NAP, they're not in the same movement as me.
I agree with you. Yeah. So, well, here's the thing I have a problem with is sometimes people like, well, we can use this here, this here, this here. And then sometimes they even go further and say, well, when if ANCAPs took over, well, I beat you all down. Or like ANCAPs say, oh, well, we fight these people. Like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. Coalitions are there so we can all agree, hey, decentralization's here. And if you don't like what's going on in a particular area or subgroup of an area, guess what? You have an option to, boom, go here, and things are going to work differently in each state, in each region. Nothing will be the same. Now, there are people saying I'm not an anarchist, and Jeremy has shown me some things. I'm in the middle, but I still like RFK Jr. as of this point, and might vote for him if he gets the nomination. I'm not kidding. So people are like, oh, you want to vote for so-and-so, you're not an anarchist. Maybe maybe that's a lot of people's, or if I want to run for local office or vote for libertarians running for state or whatever, like I supported my friend against John Fetterman here, Eric Gerhardt, they're like, oh, no, just stop voting and completely abandon the system. Like, well, if voting exists, I also want to do that because that's a Mises strategy, take over local things. But some people, some agorists or some folks would say, no, you engaging even at the local level is saying that you support the system, so you're not exactly an anarchist. So it's interesting. I don't have an exact answer for it. I could change my mind on some stuff.
I don't agree with everything you just said in terms of praxis, but like I don't think any of that is necessarily like something you should gatekeep in terms of like dividing the movement. Like obviously I help run a political party, and I still count agorists as allies, and have agorist sympathies. That's not an issue. I don't think we should really be gatekeeping on praxis unless someone is straight up Fed posting, essentially.
Yeah, or supporting a candidate. Like, to me, if somebody is just going and supporting someone just because they're on the left authoritarian side or the right authoritarian side, I don't think that's good.
You can support bad politicians for the right reasons. You can support good politicians for the wrong reasons. There's lots of debates to be had about praxis. But I think that's separate from the point that gatekeeping over philosophy is good. And so, if you like, yeah, go ahead, Jeremiah.
Here's an interesting distinction. Anyone working for the state for any reason fundamentally violates the NAP. So the thing that I think about when talking to both of you is that while you are going to do something that is going to support somebody who will inherently violate the NAP in some way, as long as the needle is generally being moved in the direction of liberty, I care very little about that particular thing because the NAP will be violated anyway. The NAP was violated to make my computer. The NAP was violated to get the clothes on my back. The NAP was violated to get the food on my plate. My thing is this. I could substitute the phrase, the NAP has been violated in all these cases and all potential cases, so we should just minimize violations rather than claim we're innocent of them. Or I could phrase it in a leftist way. And the leftist way to say that is that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. So basically, a lot of them say the same exact things, but they don't say it in the NAP way. So they would be on a similar page with you, and you could build like bridges between the two without sacrificing any principles at all, as long as you were willing to speak their language and they were willing to speak yours. As long as you were willing to realize, because that's one of the things, like, I just, you talk about conservatism. I just had a podcast recording with Hody Johns. I don't know if either of you know him, but
I know who he is. Yeah.
He's a super reasonable guy. We've been connected for a long time, and I just hit him up. I said, hey, do you want to record something on Christian anarchy? And he said, yeah. And so nice. We spent 2 hours of recorded time and an additional hour of like pre and post show, like just shooting the shit about arguably very conservative topics, and we were on the same page. So the thing that like needs to be sort of realized is that a lot of this division has been artificially created from the top down so that they can keep us fighting each other on the bottom. As long as we point our barrels horizontally at the proles fighting at the bottom of the tower, we can never point our barrels upward. So, like, ultimately, they keep us embroiled in these struggles. That's part of what the trans thing is. And it's worked reliably. I put out a video recently where I went over Hitler's favorite museum exhibit, where basically they would like post degenerate art on the walls and things. And their version of degeneracy was basically anything Jewish and by extension anything black, because the blacks are controlled by the Jews, according to Hitler. And so, yeah, I know me my Hitler. It's been Deutsch and Scottish. So basically, Hitler said that anything black was like Jewishly influenced. Like you could feel the Jewish influence coming through their music, and that was his incentive for banning anything like sufficiently Jewish or sufficiently black or sufficiently depressing or sufficiently discordant, or if it was too sexy, or if they let their pants sag, or the whole deal is that like they will always find a way to pit us against each other in order to enable their global fascism. And the state itself would really like us to think of things in terms of, well, they don't respect the NAP. Well, they probably do, and they just don't call it that. They don't want to get stolen from. They don't want to get attacked. They don't want to get like, sexually assaulted or, murdered. They understand these things and have been speaking on libertarian things for longer than right libertarians have. The thing that they do is just different in terms of some of the verbiage and some of the approach, because they're more likely to take that sort of, anti corrupt business angle. So that would be my general response.
Could we sum it up by saying, and I say this all the time, and people get mad on both sides, which maybe then it's true. Libertarians, and you could call them libertarians on the right, actual libertarians on the right, or minarchists, ANCAPs, paleos, have forgot their socialist heritage, and socialists have forgot their libertarian heritage or background. And I think that's the problem. I was even listening to Spooner today, and I'm like, okay, he was a mutualist. He understood mutual aid and influenced Benjamin Tucker and things like that.
Yeah, that motherfucker was a Wadley.
Yeah. Spooner to me is one of the greatest Americans, if not that ever lived. I mean, not only did he put things very simply, it makes sense. Like if somebody didn't sign something and consent to it, don't put them under that system. So it makes sense.
So can I jump in here? Because I think we might be getting somewhere super interesting. Because I think I might have a disagreement here. I really do strongly agree with what Jeremiah said about certain leftists and their language around capitalism. Like I very much consider mutualists to be allies, and I just don't use the word capitalism around them because I know it's like their trigger word, and they don't mean the same thing I do.
Yeah.
One brief interjection. I'll just say free market.
Yes, actually, I
say free market a lot.
I had that problem for so long. I'd be like, I'm an ANCAP, and then all I get is you're a neo-feudalist. I'm like, does anybody explain that? And they couldn't. So when I came to Mount Liberty, my friend Lizard Jesus, who's been on the podcast, hey Liz, basically, essentially what he said is, why don't you just say you're a free market anarchist? I'm like, really? That's it? And I said, hey, I'm a free market anarchist, and I believe in mutual aid. Mutual aid really is just saying, hey, my friend needs X. Okay, put his Cash App on your Facebook, and then everybody in the group shares it.
So I'm perfectly happy to not use the word capitalism around leftists who can't handle that word. And I wish there were more of them that were willing to reach out to those like me and maybe making it more of an attempt to sort of understand our language so we can communicate with each other. Because I do think that like within our very narrow circle of the liberty movement, okay, left and right libertarians, and I'm not talking about culturally, I'm talking about economically, a lot of the time we're just speaking past each other. Mm-hmm. And that's something we should work past. However, I do think that once you're into the broader world beyond like anarchist Twitter, by and large, the average leftist is extremely comfortable with a violently enforced worldview, and the average conservative thinks exactly all of the same things. They just think you should be old-timey while you do it. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying, by the way, that tankies don't exist.
Most of those people, I think there is something inherent in libertarians, essentially, that makes us different. I think some people can never be one of us. And the majority of those people who are outside of this movement, like we need to be trying to speak to the ones who can be convinced, while understanding that most of them just aren't they're not built like us. Normal people are very different, and they're very incapable of being libertarians.
Maybe, but you know what? They're not incapable of living in a decentralized community. And my argument is kind of like the malice argument that says, look, there's a very small portion of people, or maybe there's a growing portion of people. I've seen more and more people interested in libertarianism after recent events. But even though, yeah, it's a small movement. And, you know, depending on which part you look at, you know, there's different people of different ideas. People who are actually libertarians or anarchists, though, that's a small faction. The good news is the people who are like globalists or want to dominate the world are a small faction. The people in the middle really aren't doing anything. If you look at like things in terms of an RPG, I'm not going to say libertarians are the Brotherhood of Steel, but sometimes I use that comparison to say, hey, there's a Brotherhood of Steel, there's the Enclave, and then there's just people running around like, hey, look, there's a super mutant. Hey, look, there's, you know, a new sandwich in the vault. They're not doing anything.
That's why I just stick with a franchise with freedom fighters as the characters.
I do like Fallout, though. But I like Sonic 2. It was my first video game, actually. But the very small portions, after somebody wins, basically, I agree with the premise that most people will fall in line to, and I think libertarians will win. So most people say, oh, I was always a libertarian. I was always this, because decentralization works.
I agree that if libertarianism becomes the prevailing attitude in society, which I think at least on smaller levels it can,
yes,
that those people will accept libertarian ideals.
Correct.
That's I completely agree with that. That's very different from them being libertarian.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to be libertarian.
They're incapable of conceptualizing morality enough to have a moral commitment to non-aggression.
I will say this. That's I knocked my camera out. I will say, give me 1 second. I'll say that's fine. I'll take it where it can get, not to the ideal state. Like, yeah, would I like it if everybody's just like, yeah, I'm going to sit down and read Murray Rothbard and Peter Leeson.
Oh yeah,
that would be ideal, because I'd wake up in a better world tomorrow, or definitely a more interesting one, or Bakunin, or Kropotkin, or Maltesta, or even Zerzan. Yeah, some good critiques about civilization. But what I think is most people just say, oh yeah, libertarianism's cool. Look, hey man, I'm a libertarian on TikTok. Woo, who's that guy? Oh yeah, Ron Paul. Woo, yeah. I don't know who he is, but he's cool. Someone said something. That's literally how I see, unfortunately, most people just go along with the trend. Well, what does the trend say? Well, if the prevailing trend becomes that it's cool that liberty works and decentralization works, which I think is just the reason it works is simply not because people are angels, because it's closer to you and people run off incentives. That'll become eventually the prevailing attitude, because the more and more decentralized things get, the more and more people will start to kind of just say, oh, wow, this works pretty good. I don't exactly know how it works, but, you know.
A key problem here is it isn't that people are by default dumb or incapable. It's that they don't want to, and people facilitate their sloth.
I don't.
like, first off, I wanted to shout to Pabieri in chat. He's a long time, long time server member of EXE. So
You just see their dissertation if they have a PhD.
yeah, well,
Soft Pops, can you post your dissertation?
So the general vibe that, like, I think is there is funded by people who would rather people not think about it. That's the thing. These people, the Koch brothers, for instance, the people involved in the actual organizational structure of these, the people who fund these institutions are conservatives. And so what they'll do, they'll fund young people's organizations, and they'll make it seem like these young people are somehow rebellious, doing something against the system, et cetera, but there won't be any way to actually authentically rebel in the materials. I used to do work with YAL, and the YAL stuff they gave us, none of it was particularly revolutionary. Some of it was helpful. Don't get me wrong. I was helped quite a bit in my early thinking outside the system mentality. But then I started to really get pulled in the direction of things like Cop Block, because those people were actually doing something. And the Free Thought Project, because those people were talking about more than just, hey, what's the best way to crease your khakis, while talking about, like, the Keynesian, like, authoritarian monetary policy and the economic calculation. Nobody gives a shit. And, like, these people in these highly conservative circles, I found out eventually, hey, they're funded by people who were connected to neoliberal and neoconservative regimes. Maybe that's why the materials they gave us were this Nolan square, created by David Nolan, who was originally in the Libertarian Party.
He was the founder.
Yeah, and who, like, helped do everything that Murray Rothbard would eventually find out was bullshit, and that Konkin already knew was bullshit. Who's Konkin? Konkin was a guy who split off from a lot of right libertarians and formed the Alliance for the Libertarian Left, because he was frustrated with libertarians' unwillingness to work with people who, like, didn't fit their exact, like, fucking cornflower blue aesthetic, like, nerd palaces that didn't do anything except advance the same policies and not free anybody. So Konkin wanted to go against the Kochtopus, and Konkin specifically, like, had things against partyarchy, had things against these mentalities, and was totally willing to oppose the system as it stands. And, like, the thing that led me toward was the left. It was like finding out that a lot of people on the left were actually reasonable people. And there's a lot more, but
yeah, no, I like most people, and actually because of you, Jeremy, and my friends, I'm like, who's Emmett Goldman? I'm like, wait, what do you mean there's no communism in Russia? I was told Russia, USSR was totally communist. I'm like, wait, maybe someone's giving me bad information. Maybe people joking about, maybe me making jokes about Pinochet was bad and Nick Fuentes stuff was bad. And I'm like, wait, I need to do a little bit of a 360. And then I'm like, okay, who's Bakunin? Who's Maltesta? Okay. I don't know. Did Konkin ever vote, or was he always against voting?
Always.
Okay.
What was it?
Can I jump in again? I think you've identified yet another separate problem. So we have a problem with conservatives right now, in the sense of highly reactionary right-wingers who put their social values above principle.
They hate the left more than the state, is how I phrase it.
Absolutely. That's the perfect way to phrase it, and that's a problem. The Kochtopus conservatives, I think, are yet another separate problem. They're conservatives in the way Rothbard was talking about in his "Do You Hate the State" article. It's not just the social conservatism. That's a different thing. They're conservatives in the sense of they are status quo enjoyers. And
Yeah.
here's the thing. Those guys aren't considered right wing anymore, even though they arguably should be because they are
Oh,
still
they definitely are.
They definitely
Well,
are.
like-
They're on Tim Pool's show all the time saying we got to get China. China's the worst thing. Even though Colonel Douglas McGregor says it's a bad idea, apparently they know better.
Well, that's another separate group because the Coctopus has fractured at this point. It's Coctopus types who have become socially left wing, but politically milquetoast to the point of being servants of the regime. I'm talking about the Josh Eagle types, essentially.
Can you elaborate on who that is? I have no idea who that is.
Classical liberal caucus.
Yeah, classical liberal caucus
I
sorts.
don't
Reason
hate classical
Magazine.
liberals per se.
No, I don't hate classical liberals. I'm talking about like the Reason Magazine Cato types who constantly make excuses for everything the government does.
That's yeah. Nick Gillespie.
Right.
People like that.
They've split off from the Peter Thieltopus, which is now like the Tim Pool crowd who would rather talk about trans issues than hating taxes.
Honestly, to me, every time, to be fair, I haven't heard that, but what I've heard on Tim Pool is
Tim Pool's anti-trans.
I don't know if he is or not, but all I hear is like China, we got to get like all these conservatives come on. They're like, got to get China. Or they were talking about Russia today. I didn't listen to what I said. I don't hate Tim Pool or Luke, by the way.
I do.
I don't. I make that clear.
No, I'm not a Tim Pool fan. I like Luke.
I like Luke. I like Tim. I like Josh Sergensen.
Not to.
I like Luke. I like Tim. I like Josh. I don't agree with everything they say, though, a lot of times. Luke, I'm pretty on par with. I watch Luke.
He is an ANCAP.
Yeah. Luke, I'm pretty on par with. Josh, I'm on par with sometimes.
See, here's the thing, though. All these people have their sold-out garbage. Tim Pool works with Jocelyn Glaybach and any other right-wing cunt he can find. He like literally uses his platform at every conceivable turn to go against trans people. Like fucking Jocelyn over here, like joining him and laughing at a mass shooting, saying it's funny and a psyop. He's a piece of shit, and so is she. Josh blocked me everywhere.
No, I know.
Because I fucking
to
called
be
out.
Fair, every libertarian has blocked you.
Yes, but like I called out software issues on a beta software site called Float, and every issue that I called out didn't get solved, and then eventually the site went defunct. I was right every step of the way, and now you can't access float.app.
That makes him a bad software designer, not a bad libertarian.
I don't even think he was the designer. I think he's just a simp.
And look, I don't have a problem with
and he's not okay with people criticizing.
Gonna be honest, I don't watch Timcast, so I don't know who Josh is.
Well, Josh Sigurdsson is not
World
in
Alternative
Timcast.
Media.
He's World Alternative Media. And Luke parrots basically anything the Tim crowd says to. Luke is a very, very staunch conservative parrot who will use libertarian and anarchist aesthetics, but not actually be consistent in his values or do more than like read headlines and say things that other people have already said. I like Luke. I think he's fundamentally compromised. I don't think he says anything against the libertarian grain or conservative and like very far right conservative libertarian grain. And that's the reason I don't like this crowd, because they're all part of the same echo chamber kinds of circle jerks where they'll all join each other. That's the reason, if I recall correctly, Luke was even on with Tim when they had Kanye, Nick Fuentes, and Milo on and had to do some fill-in work after Kanye walked off. Like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? You were going to bring on the anti-Semite who was being anti-Semitic, and he was not going to bring up the Jews? go fuck yourself. You knew exactly what would happen. You platformed him anyway. You were a coward, unwilling to actually talk about his ideas. So instead, you stuttered a lot and weaseled your way out. And then he walks off your compound because you're a bitch. That's Tim Pool and all of his cuck-ass little friends on the right wing who are willing to platform literally any jack-off as long as they're supporting his goddamn conservatism.
I sort of agree. They are willing to platform pretty much anyone who will play into, like, the right-wing verse. I don't think there's a problem with necessarily with platforming bad people. I don't care about that. I do think there's a problem with not confronting ideals head on.
Mm-hmm.
And that is largely my issue with that crowd, especially, I mean, I don't know. I don't like Josie. But,
yeah, because she's a bitch. And also,
I don't really know her, but
let's be super specific. The reason I'm upset with the Tim situation is because the mealy-mouthed, bitch-ass, little balding coward had, like, all of the, like, time in the world to actively oppose Kanye West when he was being an anti-Semitic, otherwise bigoted piece of shit, and didn't. Why? Because it got him SEO when he tagged him in the tags. Because it got him favor when he said, hey, this is actually pretty based what Kanye is saying. Because it got him favor with his conservative crowd who said Kanye is one of the good ones, playing the racist respectability politics route. And then, like, he kept on courting this and courting this and courting this until eventually Kanye West was like, well, hey, I'm not going to talk to the mainstream media. I'm going to talk to people on the alt circuit. So Tim Pool was like, hey, book him. I'm going to be a coward and not confront these ideas head on, say it with my chest. And then when he gets on, I'm going to play like I didn't know what he was going to say. Like I'm somehow shocked that he would bring this up. Like I'm somehow like indignant that the anti-Semite I invited on is being anti-Semitic, while I also invited Fuentes and Yiannopoulos and all these other, like he knew exactly what he was doing, and he agrees with them.
So here's the thing I'll say.
I don't. Okay, I'll challenge that. I don't think Tim agrees with them. I think Tim's just kind of spineless.
Then why was he at that table with a bunch of alt-right people? That picture floats around a lot, yo.
Because Tim will be at a table with anybody, which I think is fine. He just doesn't push back on anything. Tim has
he'll push back on the left.
So here not exactly. Here's the thing I've seen. I even ask people.
Hold on, hold on, give me a second. Give me a second. Yes, he'll push back very selectively, right? Like when it helps his grift, essentially. I don't think like Tim doesn't push back on Kanye because Tim hates Jews. I think Tim's just kind of a coward. Like Tim will have a good example. Tim will have Dave Smith on, and Dave Smith will say a bunch of things that Tim doesn't agree with. Tim doesn't really give him that much pushback either.
Sure.
Because I don't think Tim really has a consistent set of principles.
Correct.
He's just there as a media figure.
I like Tim. I don't have a problem with Tim, but what I've noticed is, and I even asked somebody who was on there, essentially Tim, maybe Joe Rogan, they don't have like a consistent set of like, here's what I believe. So whatever their guest kind of goes, they go along with it. If I go on there and talk about Austrian economics, he'll be libertarian for a day. When he's talking to people who are leftists, he's like, I used to be a leftist. I'm just a disaffected liberal now. When there's conservatives on, he's like, we defend the flag and I love the Constitution and I got 10 guns. I'm like, okay, but what the heck are you? Like, I'm not saying that's terrible. Pick something.
Some people who do that are grifting. I personally kind of think Tim is. Some of them just don't have some of them just aren't ideological people. I kind of think that.
I don't think Tim, to be fair, I don't think Tim is that's what I'd say. I don't think Tim's grifting. I think Tim, Dave Rubin, and a few people like that are not necessarily bad people. They're just not super ideological, and they just talk to their guests and whatever it is, it is.
Okay, well,
here's the thing. and I think this is really emblematic. I will make this extremely fast because I know you're chomping at the bit here, Harrison.
Yeah.
But like, just to be absolutely clear, when Tim had on Surf's TV, and Surf's brought up a meta study of a bunch of studies that confirmed the that it's like good to like support transgender youth. It's good for their like psychology, their etc. When he had this guy on who brought up this meta study, he said, "No, I want to see a peer-reviewed study." And when like the Surfs guy, Vance, I think is his name, when he like challenged him and said, "But this is a meta study. It's a review of a bunch of peer-reviewed studies that all have similar and confirmatory claims. They all agree with each other. I'm handing you a fucking bunch of peer-reviewed studies, and you're saying, no, I want a peer-reviewed study, when I'm handing you all of these studies." Tim Pool continued to be a fucking piece of shit about it, because he will literally ignore evidence in front of him. I don't think he's as dumb as y'all think. I think he's a little. I think he's a bald little bitch with a conservative bias.
I kind of disagree. I tend to go with believing people are malicious, but in this particular instance, I've seen him say enough dumb stuff and get caught by it to just think I think Tim Pool's just kind of dumb.
Maybe
and like if Tim Pool was taking the right wing side against like a smart lefty, and like even if Tim was right, he would lose the debate. He's because he's dumb. Like I think that's the fundamental issue.
Kant makes a good point. He says whether he's conservative or not doesn't matter. He plays to his major audience. And Kant also said, like Tim, who was friends with neo-Nazi hacker Weave, who, at least according to Barrett Brown, was hired by Peter Thiel.
I don't know. I'm not going to make the whole episode about Tim Pool, though. I do like Tim Pool. I don't agree with him on.
I don't like Tim Pool. Why do you like Tim Pool?
Oh my God, Jeremiah.
Because I enjoy the show.
Why?
Because when I watch it, I derive enjoyment out of it.
See, my whole deal is there are so many better people, and I will support them instead because they're not a piece of shit like Tim Pool.
That's how free market. We don't have a free market, but if the semblance of a free market that exists, if you don't like what someone's saying, or if you don't like what someone's saying, I don't support Tim Pool, but I do support Luke. I do.
I'm not saying there's no manipulation. I'm not saying there's no manipulation from evil higher powers, but by and large, I like there is definitely a free market element to podcasting. Like you can support the people you like, even if you can't find them everywhere. You can find the people who say the thing you like.
Yeah, you have an hour. You could either You could either support Tim Pool, or you could support one of True Stream Media's latest videos. You could support Tim Pool, or you could watch Abby Martin give an incisive interview to fight the power. You could support Tim Pool, or you could watch Peter Coffin's latest documentary masterpiece.
I don't support Tim Pool.
You could support Tim Pool, or you could watch, or you could watch one of like so many.
Jeremiah, I'd support you and Luke. That's it.
Jay, hello, Jay. It has been so fucking long.
I don't support Tim Pool. I just watch his show.
Yo, how the fuck have you been, Jay? I haven't seen you in like literally
Jay, the
2 years. Yeah, this guy and I used to talk all the fucking time.
He's an anarcho-transhumanist.
So having done the sort of gossip session about all the right wingers we don't like, can we talk about some news? Because this fucking this shit going down in Russia is
okay. Yeah, let me get your perspective, because you do some of that there military. You do some of that there military stuff fighting against, with the United States of America.
Okay, shut the fuck up. I'll kill you.
I
Okay.
ain't scared of. Oh yeah, well, look at this guy, dude. I choked out a blue belt, so I'm scared of you. You know what? After Elon's done fighting Zuckerberg, I'm gonna cage fight Dan Crenshaw and beat his ass.
That would be funny. I'd pay to watch that.
No, don't beat his ass. You need to put that butt plug he keeps in his face into there.
I should do that. That's how I'm gonna make money. I'm tired of trying being an entrepreneur. I'll just fight.
That's a terrible opinion. Whoever just commented, you're wrong and dumb.
1% crypto. What other
okay
are you? All right.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Here's my understanding.
What's going on in Russia? Yeah.
Okay. The Wagner Group. Wagner Group is a private military similar to Blackwater, connected to the state.
Wagner is actually close to the Azov Battalion, in my opinion. They're very Nazi affiliated.
And one thing I want to say is I hate when people say, hey, you want a private military, be like Blackwater. Eric Prince is literally at like the freaking thing all the time. So don't tell me
Blackwater doesn't exist anymore. It's Academy now.
It's Academy, yeah. And
they changed name. Private militaries do that a lot.
Actually, I think it's XE at this point. If I remember correctly, they changed it again.
Yeah.
They did another name change? I didn't know that.
If I remember correctly, let me look into this.
That's funny.
I mean, yeah.
Academy.
Blackwater's done some bad stuff. Either way, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's renamed XE Services.
Okay, so
regardless.
No, actually, XE was in before Academy. Never mind.
Okay,
whatever.
Anyway, Wagner Group, from my understanding, is saying that Russian military betrayed them, and that the leader of that wants to have a coup and overthrow Putin. Now, I'm very interested to see what Jackson Henkel says on this because he seems to really like the guy. My opinion is that there's not really a good faction here, and I can't really point out exactly what's going on.
Yeah, Jackson Hinkle might like that guy, but Jackson Hinkle also likes Scott Ritter, so I don't think we can listen.
Jackson Hinkle is a fucking little retard bitch.
Regardless, if you're talking about platforming people you don't like, I want to talk to him because he has some good guests on, actually.
Okay, I'm not saying I wouldn't talk to Jackson Hinkle or that you're bad for platforming him if you do. I'm just saying I think he has bad takes.
I think you can have good takes if you talk to him and sat him down and be like, bruh, look, you talked to Ron Paul, you talked to Colonel Douglas McGregor, you saw RFK's speech. I'm not saying they're the greatest, I
have so many hot takes I could go into right now, but we're getting off topic again.
But I'd platform them anyway.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. Looking for the good side versus the bad side in Ukraine versus Wagner versus the Russian Federation army is pointless. That's not the interesting angle here. They're all terrible. They all suck. What's interesting about it is what caused this breakdown, what are the political implications of this breakdown, and how are things going to play out? Because on the ground, I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I'm not sure what Wagner's play is here, because Putin has always very deliberately used Wagner as his frontline troops to soak up damage for the army. I think that's probably a huge part of why Wagner has turned against them. But Putin always had this set up so that if Wagner turned against him, his army had, not taken as many losses and they could beat Wagner. Mm-hmm. The question is, here's the thing. This could be the greatest moment or the worst. Because if this is an organic rebellion by Wagner, it could end the war. This stops Russia in their tracks, and we could see a couple weeks of civil war, Russia on Russia, and then it stops.
I have a question though.
This is hold on. This is the chance, right, for peace talks. If it's an organic civil war. On the other hand, if Western intelligence services have anything to do with this in a provable way where Russia's serious, and even if they don't have anything to do with it, if Russia has good, legitimate reason to believe that this was the CIA's doing, this is arguably the most dangerous event in human history.
And I hate to say it, but here my big question why I would think that is people like Lindsey Graham, people like Joe Biden, when they get like your retard in chief, who, you know, I'd like to find one person in the barracks who thinks he's a good guy, and then you can challenge them to a cage match because they got
You know what?
Um,
That okay? I'll go off on that because you brought up something interesting. What
your
the
commander in chief's a
fuck?
retard.
Okay.
Hey, your boss is a retard. Hi, Biden. Don't fire this guy, or fire him in a nice way so he gets all the fake federal
Stable
reserve now.
institutional money come in and Bitcoin will hit 100K.
Yeah.
You're a fucking idiot.
No, hey
1%
man,
crypto.
hey man, hey, no.
But,
This is my audience. I have a don't do this.
Okay. Keep watching Kareem. He's based, but you're probably not going to like a lot of my takes.
Bitcoin's going to hit $1 billion tomorrow.
Possibly, but stable coins and regulations are not what's going to make that happen. Okay.
Mhm.
Regardless, that's all a distraction. God, what the fuck were we talking about?
So
Wagner
is Wagner. And I said, here's the thing: Biden, Lindsey Graham. I've heard all the
that's the point I
Republican
wanted to
senators say we need to get rid of Putin. Oh, I didn't mean that. But
Right.
to me, they're not in charge. You know who's in charge? Intelligence agencies. So they're like, to me, the president is like a wind-up little monkey from the 90s of intelligence agencies. Like the
Totally.
CIA director said this. Like, oh crap, you shouldn't have said that. Oh, he didn't mean it. It's like,
Totally. And the thing is, right? Groups don't act, individuals do. So within, the broad spectrum of the intelligence agencies, there's all kinds of personal interests, there's all kinds of different cliques. There's shit's hard to predict in these groups because it's hard to know, especially as it's happening, right? Without the hindsight. It's hard to know which factions win out in this. And it's also hard to know who are the individuals actually driving things behind the scenes. Like, you could say the intelligence agencies, but that's collectivist sort of vagary, right? The CIA is not a person. So
it isn't, but I know what they've done in Syria was they hired contractors in the country. Here's why I think it is, because they hired contractors in the country in the Syrian civil war to say Assad was bad, and then lo and behold, these are people who are paid off by the CIA. So wouldn't be surprised if the CIA is involved in this in some way, even if they're not. I could see RT spinning it as it is, like, look, there's Western interference.
Okay. Well, there's different things here. Okay, so it's entirely possible that the CIA would do this. If they did, I think that's stupid and dangerous. Now, here's the thing.
Don't care.
You mentioned, look, the CIA it has wrong theories of how foreign policy works, but
Really?
they don't want to get nuked any more than we do, right? They just think that they can win the brinksmanship and that they can be the ones who come out on top in the end.
Maybe
they don't actually
the
want.
CIA and DARPA have advanced technology. They can probably travel through time. I'm not kidding. I've studied.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but
I've just studied their declassified documents because I'm.
So here's the thing: I fully expect we will see Russian media spin this as the West's fault.
Yeah,
but
probably.
That's a different thing from Russia actually believing it, right? Russia will spin this as the West's fault. That's politically beneficial to them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? That's entirely different from it being true. If it's true, and it might be, I don't see how Russia doesn't take some sort of more violent action.
Oh, yeah. Well,
that's the interesting angle.
So
here's it like this. Could they not say that Wagner took all this damage because the West kept giving Ukraine more and more stuff and more and more stuff? If Biden had just said, and NATO just said, and not give,
yes.
Because now, from my understanding, they did get some weapons, so Wagner probably got hit pretty hard. And then what you could really argue is, well, the intelligence agencies didn't do it, but the West gave them all this advanced tech, and they killed all your guys. And
they could argue that, right? But that's first,
Well,
like,
Wagner isn't trying to argue right now that Ukraine killed their guys. They're saying that Russia hit their camp, that Russia like attacked Wagner.
yeah,
That's the current news.
which
Did you not hear that?
Russia, of course, will deny. We don't know everything that's gone on in this situation. Every side, U.S., Ukraine, Russia, Wagner, everyone will probably lie about this, right? Like, there's going to be all kinds of spin. The interesting angle is if it's true that the CIA incited this rebellion, this mutiny, essentially, and if Russia believes it's true. I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of evidence for it. And while it's totally something the CIA would do, there's also legitimate reasons why Wagner would turn against the Russian army. So this might not be a CIA op. Here's the biggest thing that makes me think it might be, though. I'll be honest, like I'm like 70-30 on this being organic. Wagner has plenty of good reasons to fight the Russian army. But, okay, this also comes at the same time as two of the most deep state senators, Lindsey Graham and some other Republican idiot, announced that if Russia were to use WMDs, or if they were to destroy, even with conventional weapons, any of the civilian nuclear power plants in Ukraine, Lindsey Graham and this other senator have tried to propose that the U.S. should consider that an Article 5 incident. That NATO, which means that NATO should then go to war.
Oh my God. So I hate to say, let me ask you this.
That all this is happening at the same time does introduce questions, and it's hard to know.
It's hard to know. I will say
this is all going to come down to essentially the fucking guesses that are made by the intelligence analysts on each side right here. It's a very sticky situation, and it could work out like there's a huge spectrum. This could be everything from working out pretty well and essentially the war's just kind of over, and this is the inciting incident towards peace talks because Russia doesn't have the material resources to keep advancing, but we've already seen that Ukraine can't make a counteroffensive to save their ass.
No, they're done.
This could be the inciting incident towards peace talks. It could also be the literal worst thing to have ever happened.
Probably, yeah. Well, here's my question. Actually, I'm interested in knowing this answer because if you're a United States senator, other than doing committee work, can you go to the Central Intelligence Agency and ask them like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" Or like, because I do feel Chucky Schumer was parts of it because when he said about Trump,
I don't know the procedure, okay, but what you have to remember is these are all individuals. So if it works out in favor of that senator and in favor of the CIA, like if it makes sense for them to be communicating, they will be communicating regardless of whether, regardless of the procedure. Okay. So if Lindsey Graham saying that bombing that nuclear facility should be an Article 5 violation, if the CIA didn't want that to happen, right? Then he has gone off. He's gone rogue. He's doing his own thing. If the CIA did want him to say that, then yeah, they're certainly talking about it, even if it did break some sort of procedure. These are individual actors making somewhat planned maneuvers.
Yeah, and to me, a lot of these deep state people, in my opinion, get together, the senators, the defense contractors, the intelligence agencies, and probably do things behind the scene, and then you don't see it until later. And I'm very interested to see the information that comes out.
Y'all know that, like, specifically Wagner has been, like, getting a lot of weapons and materials from NATO allies for a long time, right?
I've not heard
that they caught them in Turkey getting deals there but
That makes sense.
but that they
Well-
had like gotten significant amounts of like stuff before, and that some of Ukraine's own arms have been sold to third parties potentially connected to Russia
Well-
since like the war started. So to me,
So there is
and this is my thing. I see a long and storied history of the banksters bankrolling both sides of conflicts. They did it in Nazi Germany. They did it with the Mujahideen in Operation Cyclone. They did it with Nazis from the 60s up. Well, actually, honestly, from the 50s up.
going back way farther, the U.S. Civil War, the American Revolution.
Well, I'm saying like that's when
Yeah.
when they were doing active business with Nazis, like the
Okay.
Bundeswehr,
I see the point you're making.
NATO High Command, the Galen Org, all these things that ratlined Nazis out of Germany, and Aerodynamic was one of them, and that's where they were working directly with Ukraine, and so to me, they will work with like whatever party is necessary to keep their particular divide going, and they are sympathetic to theocratic and like authoritarian rightist mentalities. And now we're seeing that Western allies are helping facilitate trades. And this time they got caught by somebody who gave enough of a shit. But like, if anyone thinks that the war profiteers aren't selling weapons to the Russians, then they're delusional. And
I'm sure they are.
so, like, my whole deal is I have been watching what amounts to a manufactured conflict for a while now. The U.S. government, Canadian government, all these Westerners training Azov Battalion, training Right Sector, training C-14, and throwing money at them since the coup and before the coup in Euromaidan. And they were also like funding Ukrainian nationalists in the vein of Stepan Bandera in the 60s. They've been doing this for a while. So to fund another Nazi affiliated group, but this time this one's in Russia because they know that this group will be volatile if provoked, and then to incite a provocation event by having a false flag, that's not beyond the pale, especially from the same government that brought you these passports survived a plane that burnt down 2 steel buildings and a third one they didn't hit.
I have a $1 million question.
Highly believable.
Harrison.
Yes.
When are you rebelling against that fucking retard boss you have in the White House and getting the boys together? Because I'd be down with that. I'll hit you up with some.
Okay. No. Let's first of all, I probably shouldn't talk like that. It is a felony, But
dude,
not my first one, but
do some tax evasion along with that. I'll give you a
okay.
combo.
Hold on. Okay, I'm gonna tell you some real shit about the U.S.
He's gonna shit his pants multiple times.
When I'm
I'm done.
If I don't talk about politics with other Marines because someone will snitch. But
do you ever eat an apple in front of them?
Huh?
Do you ever eat an apple in front of them?
I eat nothing in front of them if I can.
Apple, fuck the core. I'm gonna get you in trouble. I'm kidding. I shouldn't.
Look, I don't talk about politics with other Marines. I don't talk about my politics with other Marines. I'll listen to them.
Or,
huh?
You're a Marine? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll listen to them talk about their politics, and I'll tell you something. Most Marines, and this goes for most cops too, because I'm a reservist, so most of the Marines I know are cops. They hate Biden, but if Joe Biden told them to kill you, they would.
Sounds like see, this is what annoys me. I see these TikToks or these Snap. They're like, you do what you're supposed to do. You never question anything. I'm like, dude, there'll be a point where you're never questioning anything, and then there's a nuclear power like Russia or China, and you're like, you just go and do. I'm like, look, listen, can't there be a point where you're like put the programming away? We might destroy humanity.
We've gotten talks. So the U.S. Marine Corps is the most China hawk organization. It is the most China hawk institution in America. And a lot of that is like internal military politics because the Pacific is what gives the Marine Corps a reason to exist. Because we're gonna hop islands again like it's World War II.
God. Dude, you need to talk some sense into these people.
So we really push that idea. And every Marine there's two emotions like about war with China. Just the guys who are simply afraid to die and don't like it, and the guys who hate China, I guess. They watch Fox News or whatever, and they're all in. Here's the thing. We've gotten to talk about Ukraine before and what's happening in the war. And all of these people who were sitting around listening to our higher-ups lecture us about the Ukraine war clearly watch like right-wing alt media. They're probably all Tim Pool fans. And
I don't hate Tim Pool, but like
I do.
They're very shut up, both of you. They're very skeptical of the war in Ukraine. And they rattled off all kinds of facts that our commanding people didn't know. That were the, sort of all the standard talking points against us supporting Ukraine. A lot of people brought up Azov because that's kind of basic, but there was even one guy brought up Maidan. Like some of them knew. But if they were told to ship out, they'd go.
Yes. And a lot of these people, like, they've been trained, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've spoken to enough of them. They've been training so long or deployed so long or in their circuit so long that all they know is this. And so they know that they're fucked up. They know that they're going to go home broken. And so at least they want to see some action. And it's like...
a thing for the active guys, especially the active duty infantry who are like genuine GWAT vets. Like if you saw the shit in, I mean, most people didn't really go. There's very few Marines who fought in the heyday in Iraq. But even like the guys who went back to fight ISIS, yeah, they're pretty fucked, and they're just broken people. They're just killers now.
I would imagine they are, but look, I'll be honest. My boy who I went to college with.
Most of the people I know, they're not fucking warfighters, man. They're just fucking retarded Zoomers. They don't know anything.
The thing. Harrison, look, my boy who went to college with me, he was an NCO. He was a drill sergeant. He's shorter than me. I'm glad. I know I could take him now. There's more of you than your NCO. Tell your NCO you're done. You're an idiot, and then knock him out and get out of there. Just forget it. Just beat up your drill sergeant and leave.
They don't have a drill sergeant anymore.
All right. Yeah, the dollar's going to collapse. I'm kind of at this point where, like, in America, I'm looking at it like Somalia with better Wi-Fi. The dollar's going to collapse. I'm going to kind of do what I want now.
The dollar's not going to collapse.
Yeah. The dollar's not going to collapse.
It will.
They're building up CBDC for a fucking reason.
They'll never work.
Eventually, the dollar will collapse because Ponzi schemes eventually do. But you're falling into the
hopium.
The hopium, essentially, the trap of like, oh, hyperinflation's right around the corner. Like it's not coming right now. Okay.
Give it a couple of months. Like, here's the thing, inflation's already pretty bad.
A couple of months in December.
I didn't mean a couple months. I mean like a
inflation's
decade.
Most people are living paycheck to paycheck and can't really get by. Like, what do you want? Do you want watermelons to be $80 till you're like, oh man, it's kind of bad, dude.
They don't need that. If they put us into a war, they did the same thing the last time there was about like the Great Depression thing. Oh hey, shit! Now we got a fucking world war, dude.
Okay,
yeah, it's possible. Not bad enough. It's not bad enough for people to change their ways yet. That's why we shouldn't be
getting close. Look, when you can't fill, there's a lot of people I know who are struggling to fill up their car, get groceries, and just
you could have said the same stuff in the Depression era, and then they had a war and fixed it with that.
I think there's a misconception. I think there's a misconception about revolution, where I think a lot of libertarians, because they have the innate tendency towards the rebellion, tend to think a lot of people are a lot closer to revolution than they really are. Look, there's some people who are almost there, but average folks, I'm not sure they'd do anything even if their kids were starving, man. They
I
don't
agree with
rebel.
you.
They don't rebel. They will
don't.
always go along. That's why we can't focus on them. We've got to focus on the people who already have it in them to hate the state.
Yeah, 99% of people shut down their businesses and did everything they were told and yelled at me, "Oh my God, Kareem, it's the worst thing
And
ever."
they'll accept the CBDC as fucking well, which means they won't need to worry about a collapsing fucking dollar.
All right. Then here's my thing. If most people are tired, fine, forget the dollar and stuff. I'll just say this, Harrison. If most people are tired of this, can't there be a conscientious objection where you just walk out? You just walk out. Like, granted, I don't like sometimes what I do, but like, is there a certain point where you're just like, hey, NCO, I'm out. I don't want to die.
You mean within the military specifically?
Yeah, just say I'm done. I'm discharged.
There's a line. Well, okay, look, I'm light duty, so I don't do any work in the military anymore. They just pay me and make me show up. So I'm not there yet.
Don't show up.
I will tell you, there's a line. I'm not going to say it on this podcast because, snitches. But there is a line where I would stop obeying orders. Yeah, absolutely.
There has to be, like, I'm wondering where that is because I see a lot of people, they're gun ho. I'm like, dude, there has to be a line where you
don't have one.
They need to. Or can you?
No, they don't have a line.
Can you talk some sense into them? Throw some Rothbard. Be like, dude,
no.
Here, there has to be a line where you're like, this is a nuclear power. This is bad.
Look, I'd be willing to talk some sense into them. Is it possible to talk sense into them? No. They'd be prison guards at Auschwitz if they were told to.
I mean, this is the problem, though. I think is like Mark Passio, who I guess Jeremy has some different opinions about, made a very good presentation on order followers. He said, like, let's be honest, the order of followers, if cops and military didn't exist, these people would just be people. Lindsey Graham would be a person with bad ideas. That's all he would be. He'd be some fucking nutcase in South Carolina. Like, I want to blow stuff up. Like, okay.
That's an insult to nutcases. They don't have ball sacks for eye sockets.
Okay, fine. He'd be some warmongering piece of shit, but nobody would care. So my thing is this. At some point, to me, really, if we're going to really win-win, we have to talk to the people who are enforcing these things and, like, talk some sense in them and be like, A, leave, do a militia thing or a private thing, or B, like, at least come to some realization and stop encouraging this behavior. And that's not to say I hate every military person or active duty person or veteran. I have friends who are veterans and all that stuff. But I think they're setting
Rainbow, Stanford prison experiment. There are people who just follow orders.
Yeah, and this is what's going to destroy humanity, though, in my opinion. Because if it isn't this, say it's not the Wagner thing, and it's completely that there's people who are constantly, I see them on Tim Pool all the time, rattling, let's get China, or let's get Iran, or let's get somebody, or we got to fight somebody.
Hey, Kareem, did you watch my video about fentanyl?
I have not.
Okay, because the reason they're doing the fentanyl scare is so that they can start doing aggressive actions against Mexico and South America, so that they can justify moving the war for resources over there so that they don't have to work with China anymore. And then they'll have bases of material operations there, and they can avoid working with BRICS because they're about to go to world fucking war with BRICS.
Yeah, because what's funny is people are like, Trump is start no wars. I'm like, he wanted to bomb Mexico, dude. Like, how?
And he assassinated an Iranian general, who, by the way, Liz Cheney helped install regime change actors in Syria and Iran. And she is being celebrated by the Democratic establishment right now because she said Orange Man bad, but in paperwork this time.
Yeah, but she supports what he does, which is dumb.
And she supported torture, which is hilarious since, like, daddy. You know, like, these people are not fundamentally ethical. These people are evil. And so are any little toady little bootlickers who support them, like Tim Pool.
Yeah. So here's what I'll say. What I'll say is, if more and more people come to the realization, hey, look, this needs to stop, and they just conscientiously object, especially in these things, then this machine has to come to a halt. It has to come to a halt sooner or later. To me, this is just pushing what should inevitably happen.
Or the reason that they're doing so much involving AI and machine learning and that sort of thing is so that they can render the humans who would object to these things obsolete and still run the machines anyway, so that they can centrally control with less manpower and less potential betrayal.
Call me John Connor and Ted Kaczynski.
See how everything I've been saying has been like gradually being proven right?
What would Uncle Ted do?
I'm not going to do what he did. He ended up in jail.
It was also wrong. Just for the record, you shouldn't nail bombs to people. It's bad.
Yeah, those bombs sucked.
Shouldn't do that.
They clearly they didn't go off, and that's why they caught him. That was very ineffective of him.
Can I get you and your devil dogs to do a moment of silence and a salute for Uncle T?
Here, I'll do this instead because he wouldn't like military veneration symbols being used for him.
That's true.
And we shouldn't do it on a computer either. So do it out in nature. Go out in your yard and do that.
You know, bombs are technology. He clearly didn't oppose all of it.
Correct. But he was a nice uncle. He wrote a nice manifesto.
See, my thing is that, like, if you talk his manifesto, fine, whatever. Surrogate activities, don't become a slave to the system, sure. But I think it was much more concise, his version of a ship of fools, because his whole thing there was, yeah, we're fighting over all these social issues and all these petty little economic concerns, but you know what we're not doing? We're not veering off course for this iceberg, and we're all gonna fucking die. So, like, even if, like, Wagner, like, simmers down, even if the Ukraine-Russia situation, like, fucks off, even if China goes back to making, like, game console software for, like, stupid people so that they can escape from the reality that they're creating, even if, like, all of this happens, hey, I told you I'm an asshole. Even if all this happens, we're still heading toward that iceberg. We're fucked because people are too indolent and too, like, impulsive and too easily dissuaded, distracted, and sedated to, like, actually do jack fucking shit. So we are rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, and even worse than that, we're watching other people implode next to us after we die.
Okay. Here's my thing. I'm going to give you the Michael Tessarion speech, if you know who that is, because he actually did. Yes, all these things do exist, concept CBDC, all these surveillance, AI, biometrics, all that. And it could be a potential reality. But what happens is a lot of people...
It is a reality.
Okay. They haven't implemented it yet. So I'm just...
They have.
Okay. Even if they have, Michael Tessarion said, well, there's one, you can take the kind of approach of that, or you can take the approach of, I'm not going to give into the fear. I'm not going to have other people give into the fear. And it was
my heart rate is like 70 right now. I'm not afraid at all. I'm going to fuck these motherfuckers up.
These elites are not impressive. They're not Cecil Rhodes. They're not like the old Rothschilds.
They don't need to be.
They're stupid.
And they have the Rothschilds and Rockefellers on board. The Rockefellers are literally building the ID systems and money.
David Rockefeller's dead. Who's doing it?
I don't fucking care. The Rockefeller Institute is still doing this. You should look at ID 2020, the Digital Dollar Project, and OpenID.
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do.
Alliance.
My boy Harrison, after they rebel against, Sleepy Joe shit his pants, I don't. We'll boog and we'll take down the reptilians.
Okay, listen. I am white, Kareem. Your argument is so bad that I am white pilled, and you're making me black pilled. You're making me agree with you less as you keep going. Okay,
I made a good argument. Yeah, you're not following orders, man. What the heck? Come on, devil dog, give me some push-ups.
Listen.
He's doing more pull-ups than you, and he's not, and he didn't get the gene-altering juice.
Yeah, fuck, man. If only I wouldn't be fat anymore.
Yeah. What do you see? You're fat. You guys can't win. You should all just get discharged. Play Call of Duty. Say you're a soldier then.
If only. If only. But no, listen.
Why is my argument bad?
No one is my girlfriend just texted me to turn the fucking light on. No one
They say
listen. Oh crap. I need to fucking power my laptop too.
yes, Jeremy doesn't respect the great
I'll be
nation
right back.
of
My
Somalia
computer's about to die.
or Bobby Kennedy.
So the thing is that what I understand to be the case is that for the past like millennia, humans have been gradually fucking their freedom. Okay? Like they've been gradually accepting greater and greater levels of control with greater and greater levels of automation for that control. They're losing their need for humans to work the machines and maintaining their control over said machines in the process. They're also creating a society of people who are too indolent, who are too like indifferent to give enough of a shit to even get fit, to even move in that direction. And these people have been sedated. These people have been divided against each other so that they think yelling at trans people online is going to give them freedom. They have been dumbed down to the point where they think watching a YouTube video is the same as activism. And they aren't willing to do anything at all as long as they're allowed to keep their entertainment, as long as they're allowed to keep Panamets or senses. Like Justin the other month saying that, oh yeah, you know what? Why are you talking so much about AI being a threat to freedom when we've got trans people in sports? Fuck off. This is where we are. This is where we are, where people are literally more concerned with sports than they are with the technocratic superstate. And that's how the elites want it. That's how they built it. And that's where we are. There is no rebellion right now because the people involved in these circles, which would even court rebellion, are so bought by the system and infiltrated by the state capitalists that they're not willing to fight back, and they're trained to think it's wrong to fight back.
Well,
but it's a private business. No, it's not.
No, it's
but
not.
It's fine.
I'm waking people up. I woke Danny up on that. Me and Danny had to talk. So slowly but surely, hey, look, there's people who are doing stuff. You're crushing it with pull-ups. I'm getting my jiu-jitsu game on and some kickboxing. Lizard Jesus is really coalition hard.
We aren't reaching critical mass. And what I'm trying to tell you is that if we, a distinct minority, less than 1% of 1% of 1% of the global population, do something, they will crush us like ants. Look, and everybody else will enjoy that and join in because they don't want to rock the boat and not get their next stimmy CBDCs.
As far as I'm concerned, very few amount of people can make a difference. Revolutionary War was less than 3%. Look, you, me, and Lizard Jesus could take this thing down if we were committed to it. I believe that.
Okay, but we can't. We need more than us three people. We need more. We need many more people. That's the reason I'm working on the coalitions. That's the reason I'm working to work with as many people as possible, because I know for a fact that a small group of people is not going to fucking cut it.
It will.
I don't think. Yeah. Okay. I think Kareem has a point to some extent. I don't think any amount of technology or even force can overcome the natural inclinations of a body of people. And I think that I think that listen, I think the
what natural inclinations?
Hold on. I think the Rothschilds and Rockefellers with like a globalist view, essentially, are about to run into the fact that the key populace in their empire, Americans, would prefer decentralization at this point. Not right now, but we are coming towards a time where I think even the progressives are going to give up on winning and abandon the empire. This is multiple nations that have been super glued together, and I don't think more super glue is gonna keep it in one piece.
They don't care if it's in one piece. The Denver International Airport were murals testaments to the fact that they're ushering in the apocalypse and that they have a pale horse on their proverbial runway signifying death.
There's lizard people under that airport, by the way. And
I don't fucking care. The reason I'm bringing that up is because it's symbolic of their willingness to kill a fuck ton of people in order to get what they want.
But because they're
lizards. These are Malthusian motherfuckers. I don't care if they're lizard Malthusians. They're Malthusians, motherfucker.
I agree.
They will wipe us out if we get in their way.
But that's why they think like that. That's dude. Check out.
I don't care.
You like David Icke?
I like some of what he says. My point is that it doesn't matter who they are. They have demonstrated a willingness for mass murder.
Yes. We can take them down with just the Mises Caucus, Mad Liberty, and EXE.
The Mises Caucus is divided against itself to a significant
point. Me and Harrison get along great.
Yes, it is.
It's pretty divided right now, man. It's not looking great.
And part of the reason for that is because people keep on bringing up people like Jackson Hinkle rather than working with authentic libertarians. And these people keep on working with child predators like Scott Ritter and other unseemly elements and other unseemly people. And it doesn't matter whether or not, these people have done anything wrong or even anything of merit, as long as they have numbers. People in these populist people. Yes, it is.
I didn't work with okay. I said if Scott Ritter went to that march, I wasn't going. And me and 5 other meatcocks went on his stream and said, "Drop out, you piece of shit! Drop out, drop out."
And you know who didn't? Angela McArdle.
Okay, fine. She has other.
That's why Josh Smith stopped being the VP.
I get it.
Fucking conscience.
She has other things to do.
I don't fucking care.
Can you not yell all the time?
I was trying to say words and you were trying to like talk over what I was saying. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
We didn't work with Scott Ritter. We didn't. I don't know.
They did. She does. Jackson Hinkle was at the march. It was a march partially sponsored by the Libertarian Party. And then Angela McArdle also went to another allegedly anti-war march for a political candidate, not even a libertarian one. And this one also had fucking Scott Ritter there. They just can't get rid of Ritter.
Well, maybe he won't go away. I don't know. We tried to get rid of him. You even said Mises Caucus. You said on the post Mises Caucus is doing the right thing, and we were all denouncing Scott Ritter.
Not all.
A lot of people were. A lot of people didn't like him. I don't know the just Jackson Hinkle guy.
Jackson Hinkle works with him. The People's Party work with them. He's in the People's Party. I don't know what to fucking tell you, man. If we can't even get rid of one wannabe kid diddler, we aren't fucking gonna make it.
We got rid of Scott Ritter.
No.
He dropped out.
Angela McArdle is still talking with him, is still in positive relations with him. He is still in positive relations with people like Clint of Liberty Lockdown. People are still willing to fucking support him.
Well,
do not act like because he dropped out of one event that he's gone. That's not how this works.
I don't see anybody from Mises like mentioning him. I can't say who's talking to who. I'm a libertarian. I don't sit around and go like, "Hey, who are you talking to? Who, like Harrison, who'd you talk to?"
You should.
But I don't have the time to do that. Like, I don't have time. Angela, did you
I've
talk
somehow done it. Hey, everybody who agrees with me that maybe we shouldn't work with kid diddlers, support my Patreon because I should get paid for this shit.
I agree with you. We shouldn't, but I can't police who talks to everybody at all times.
You can say any movement or group of people who is okay with working with a 2-time convicted attempted child molester.
We're not. We got him to drop out.
Angela is. So many libertarians are. Clint supported him after he got suspended from Twitter.
I will talk to them.
Up to you. I'm just saying that's why I see them as divided, because there are some reasonable people in the Mises Caucus. I'm not saying there aren't. I'm saying it's divided, and that there are reasonable and unreasonable people in the caucus, and that they can't even agree on this, much less how the boog manifests.
You know what? We're making significant gains in local governments. We got some things going. We took over the party. Porkfest is going well. Porkfest is tearing it up. People are enthusiastic. RFK is doing well in the polls.
RFK is a CIA-loving Democrat.
No, he doesn't love the CIA.
He says most of them are good people, including his family, who works in the CIA.
He must have changed his mind recently. I don't know.
I showed you the tweet on the last stream.
I saw it, but then he also said they killed his dad and his uncle. So
a few of them. He's willing to cape for the rest of them. RFK sucks. He's a boilerplate politician who says a few interesting things, and everybody laps up his scrotum.
He's the only anti-establishment candidate I can find.
He's not anti-establishment if he's not anti-CIA.
He said he wanted to dismantle them. I don't know what's true, to be honest.
Maybe he's a politician engaging in doublespeak, and he will say what's necessary to get on podcasts.
But I would find it very weird that an agency that killed your own family members, you're like, yeah, let's keep them around. They're cool dudes. I don't know.
He did.
I don't know, man. It's increasingly confusing.
It's not confusing if you just jump to the cynical, malicious perspective like I do and say he's a politician engaging in doublespeak and lying so that he can get his fucking books sold.
It's possible.
Jesus.
All right, I'm good, guys. Thanks for
yeah, I'm pretty much good soon as well. I got plans with friends.
You have friends? As my dad would say.
All right.
I'm kidding.
Good podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Harrison. I didn't want to black pill you.
Well, my question is, Harrison, can you actually find argument with any of my black pilling arguments here?
Need to raise your vibration, man.
Some of them, but I don't have the energy tonight. Maybe that's our next debate. We did politics versus agorism. We did AI versus no AI. Maybe that's the next debate: white pill versus black pill.
I'll argue with him. I'll argue this. I'll stick around and battle it out.
Yeah,
like I literally can't. I
like
have
a Somali warlord.
I have plans at like 8:15. So, either way, I think I made my points fairly succinctly. You know, I don't support this idea that it's going to be easy. I don't support this idea that people are like have some sort of burgeoning desire to be free. People can't even like say the truth.
Here's what I support based on metaphysical practices and studying Neville Goddard and stuff like that. Because when I was younger, someone handed me The Secret, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense, but maybe there's something here. And I kept digging, until I got to the gateway process and Neville Goddard, and I've come to the conclusion: if you say we're black, like if I say you buy a car, and you're like, oh, this car was nowhere, I got a black Suzuki, then I start seeing it everywhere. Say you like, I want to see a purple elephant, maybe you'll see it on a cover. Your subconscious mind, to me, just mirrors back what you say the world is. So if you're black pilled, you'll find evidence that things are bad. If you're not if you're white pilled, you'll find evidence that we're winning.
You're right. You know what I should have done instead of looking into how these people like actually think and what they actually say? I should have like been instead white pilled in my brain so that I didn't find the evidence that that's bullshit.
I'm not saying. Oh, okay. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't look at them. I look at their speeches. I look at Yuval Harari and all those people say. What I do is, though, I do fundamentally believe reality, this current thing we call reality, the principle of mentalism, which is a hermetic principle. The universe is mental in nature. A lot of what you project out into the world is your subconscious mind mirroring back what you have created.
I am not creating for myself pedophilia in Scott Ritter.
Saying you are.
I'm creating for myself an understanding framework to be able to recognize things when they happen. And what I've recognized is a consistent pattern of evil in these circles. And they are not united enough to do jack shit together, much less a revolution.
Right, then let's keep coalitioning.
Yes.
I'll keep because look, let's keep coalitioning. I'll keep the optimistic route. You can keep your current viewpoint, and we'll see what happens.
And that's up to you. I'm not trying to control you here. All I'm saying is that from my perspective, there is no way forward unless we are willing to take the steps now to oppose these evil motherfuckers. And we can't do that while we can't even get on the same page about what is evil and what is not. And when certain high-ranking libertarian officials are still totally okay with working with Ritter, that's a fucking problem. When that's like one example among so many of prominent libertarians selling out and cucking as soon as somebody with large numbers says so, Thaddeus Russell, Eliza Blue, two people with large amounts of numbers, both of them supported by Tim Pool and all these right-wing libertarian like circle, like podcastosphere types. Those people both support adult child sex. So if you get to a point where you can't even remove people who are advocating positions of predation or trying to engage in it, you are fucked. And what I'm trying to say is that yes, the official Mises Caucus account and a bunch of people affiliated with it, myself included, were mutual still. I don't know, maybe not after this. I don't know. But like the point is that a few people did the right thing. And because of that, he was pushed out. We need everybody, or at least a vast fucking majority.
We're working
and
on
you know, and you know, yeah. But you know what you have to do in order to work on it? You have to relentlessly hold these motherfuckers accountable. You have to never give them an inch. You have to keep on them. That's what you do. You don't hope your way to a better future. You act your way to a better future.
I agree.
You push these people out. You make sure that it's cohesive. You have yourself on the same page. But so many libertarians are much more concerned with pushing people out who like with pushing trans people out or pushing them commies than they are literal kid diddlers and their supporters. That is what has to change. There needs to be an actual concerted effort toward real anarchy instead of trying to control other people and at the same time allow the worst of the worst elements as long as they repeat enough of the dogma that they're considered one of the good ones.
That I agree with.
And that's why I'm black-pilled, because I don't see that fucking happening. And because trying to do so has gotten me absolutely demonized in all these circles.
I mean, you're still here. I'm still agreeing with you. And you still have circles. You have Agris Nexus and EXE. I don't know if those are directly connected.
They're not directly connected. I still have a few people who are willing to platform me. The vast majority of people are not. The vast majority of people want me gone. And they wouldn't care if I offed myself. The vast majority of people are not on bored with this. They do not want accountability. They
Scott
don't
Horton
like
likes-
the idea.
Scott
They
Horton
don't,
likes you.
they don't like the idea of like somebody holding them accountable, of somebody trying to move the needle.
I mean, you still have some key players like Scott Horton. Like, that's a person I mentioned. Scott Horton still seems to.
I mean, we're mutuals. I don't know that he specifically likes me. He hasn't, I don't think, ever said that, but you know,
I don't think
thanks
he
if
did.
you did.
don't
Point is that like I know where I am in these circles, and I know that the reason is that I've been
Like-
trying to hold them accountable.
Like, Jack will still talk to you. Lizard will still talk to you.
Jack Lloyd?
Maybe, yeah.
No, we haven't spoken in like at least a year.
Oh, okay.
Barely ever before that because he doesn't like some of my takes. A lot of these people are just in the background saying, don't talk to Jeremy. He's trash. Let him fade into obscurity. Let him become homeless. That's what a lot of these people want.
Yeah,
And I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to give up. But a lot of these people want me to. And I'm not saying Scott, by the way. I'm not saying Jack. I'm saying a lot of people in these circles. I'm saying that I know where I am because I've seen what they say.
Well, here's the thing. I will say this. I agree with you on everything. I'm still willing to platform you and listen to you. And I like the idea of coalition building. And I'm trying to introduce that into a thing. A lot of people are resilient, but a lot of people are starting to agree with me. So that's starting to work. I mean, I'm trying to get you back into some of these groups. So with at least if Liz Jesus and Mike Bobby can talk to you, that would be good. And then if Clint can talk to you, that would be good. If you want to come to Mises events, that'd be cool. And even
if they have one in Spokane, I'm not going to travel.
And if Mark Passio's group, or the people in there are cool, and then like people like Larkin Rose.
Like, I'll go to events. I'll speak at events if they want my aggressive conspiracy theories.
Yeah, Passio has some good conspiracy theories. Although Justin Padini's there, so that's your buddy. But yeah.
I mean, I'm just not going to talk to him. I know what it's going to end up with. And his friends are going to call me a pedophile. He's going to lie about what I say and ignore what I do. And, there's no actual fruit that can be garnered from a conversation with somebody who believes that Panamets or Senses is more important than the AI technocratic superstate. He is one of the fools on the ship. I'm trying to move it away from the iceberg. We are going to die. And he's going to be watching sports and happy that they don't have a trans person there on the screen.
Yeah, okay. And I disagree with that. And I've been trying to tell people, look, you're falling for a divide and conquer mechanism. I guess I'll end it with this. If you've played Civilization, there's different ways. I haven't. Okay, well, if you play Civilization, you can have a military victory. That's not in the cards for us. You can have an economic victory. It's probably not in the cards for us either, though I like crypto. You can't have a cultural victory, and cultural victories are really powerful because you fundamentally change the culture and you don't have to shoot a bullet. We can win a cultural victory. I fundamentally believe that if we get enough people to understand how decentralization works.
Yeah, politics is downstream from culture. I'm totally fine.
Like today, I'm like, what the heck is distributionism? Is it any good? I can't.
Distributism is not. It's just weird milquetoast halfwayism. I'm not okay with that. I want anarchy.
Okay. So, and then I was looking into individualism a little bit, and I guess there's a thing called anarcho-conservatism and collectivism. So, trying to figure out how it all works, and then trying to make wins where I can. And I think it's possible. I think we will win in the end. I'm not optimistic. I'm not pessimistic. I'm realistic, but I'm going to keep trying no matter what happens. I think it's the right thing to do. We got to solve the HCQ, man. So the hardest case question.
I am a pessimistic, cynical, black-pilled motherfucker. I'm going to keep going anyway.
But
there's a line from Shadow the Hedgehog that always rings true in my mind. If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have. That's my mentality. Even if this is all true, I'm not going to give in.
I think what's true and what a lot of people realize, fair enough. like that mentality. If you look at Leeson's lecture, which I did send you, most governments in the world are hanging on by a thread. I think if we could just convince enough people to let those governments dissolve all around the world, that would be a big feat. And
these governments are visibly hanging on by a thread. In the background, they're getting stronger than ever. That's what CBDC is.
But even so, the People's Fund for Peace and whatever that organization is, and I've looked at it, rank governments, and more than half are not able to really hang on by a thread. It shows to me the world can live in functional anarchy, like Leeson said. Leeson gets a ton of stuff right. Even the Constitution people revere was initially a pirate document to give decentralized orders on maritime law to pirates. So I think there's extremely valuable stuff in his work, and he's probably the best economist of all time. He's and definitely the best of our time. He's optimistic in a lot of these regards, so I think I can be.
And you can choose to follow his optimism, and I can choose to not.
Fair enough.
I can choose to recognize that the world is heading in ever greater dystopian like directions that I haven't seen him even talk about. So if he is not even going to talk about the things I'm talking about, then of course he comes to different conclusions. I don't think it's reasonable to ignore all the stuff that I do mention that makes me black-pilled and say then after doing so, by only looking at the analysis of the person who doesn't look at any of this at all, or at least doesn't mention it, that things are going to be roses in the end because people want freedom. They don't. They're not choosing freedom. They're choosing their own enslavement, and we're heading.
They want to minimize externalities.
They're choosing their own enslavement, and we're heading for the iceberg. That's what Ted Kaye was saying, and he was right.
Partially.
Entirely.
Partially. Look,
entirely.
Listen, look, I honestly believe if you can put the pieces he put together, reputation signaling, reputation plus signaling, and clubs, organizations like Matt, and then on top of that, customary law, you have a very powerful recipe with all these anarcho factions also coalitioning. You actually have the recipe there to beat the state. You just have to see how this implements in real life, kind of like a sociologist.
Having the recipes don't matter if your kitchen is constantly getting fucked up by the sous chef. There are people who know a lot more about the way the system works, and these people are the ones who pull the strings. I'm not saying it's impossible that we'll get to freedom. I'm saying that we need to be realistic enough to know that we're nowhere near it, and that we can't be near it until people are willing to recognize the problems and actually unite and rebel.
Okay, fair enough. I will say this. The nation that gives me hope, Black Hawk Down. The answer to 1776 is 1991, actually. That's what I would say. Because it showed, whether you consider minarchy or anarchy, it's maybe closer to the scale of anarchy, that warlords who do not necessarily get along, who are not the greatest people, and clan elders were able to, in relative decentralization, whether you want to consider it anarchy or not, depending on your definition, you can look at it in different contexts, like Leeson would say, they were able to facilitate social order enough to create a huge increase in economic and social welfare. If it's possible in Somalia, it's definitely possible everywhere else.
Or we can do better than Somalia, but we need to start by recognizing all the problems that exist and realizing that the common person doesn't yet give a shit, and that we need to get as many people on board as possible and coalition with as many people as possible.
I agree with that.
So that we can actually overthrow the structure in a culturally successful way, rather than having to fight against the overcurrent and consistently lose.
Well, that I will agree with you on, and I will end it there. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in to the Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self-governance. I'm your host, Green Mays, and I was joined by the one, the only, the super excited and enthusiastic. He's a happy guy. He does 100 pull-ups, and he doesn't have to say chaos control in between them. Jeremiah Harding from...
normally I'll just like, near the end of the set.
Yeah, like Dr. Robotnik. So Jeremiah Harding from Insanity is free.
He's obese. I don't think he does any of that.
He's a transhumanist. He builds robots and puts animals in there. Makes them people. He's a solar punk.
Well, no, because he doesn't like wildlife. He specifically like removes it from his like bases.
Fair enough. So, and we were also joined by Harrison Wells of the Arizona Mises Caucus account. Go give them a big follow and give us a big subscribe. If you like this content, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. If you have any comments for me, let me know down below. Anarchists, I will see you in the next video.